College football fans, the championship is here, and DraftKings Sportsbook is making sure you can throw down on the epic showdown for a shot at big bucks. New customers can score 150 instantly in bonus bets for betting $5 on the championship game.
No SEC schools in the championship is wild, but it should be a fun one. On DraftKings right now, Michigan is a 4.5-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 55.5.
Download the app now and use code Jenkins, Jenkins. New customers can score 150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on college football. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code Jenkins. The crown is yours. Welcome to Jenkins and Jonez on the Volume Podcast Network. It is Saturday, January 6th.
Oh, it is white
Congratulations to those who celebrate.
Happy anniversary. Oh man, y'all just happened to stumble onto one of those episodes. We are very happy to welcome on our special guest today. You know him from Secret Base. He is at Kofie Y on TikTok and Twitch. Kofie, we found a real life Pistons fan to talk to. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Dude, thanks for having me. It's always good to talk about the Detroit Pistons, baby.
Oh yeah, that's what the people want, man. For sure, man.
Always a fun time.
Yes, sir. Good to have you on, bro. I love the background. It looks like the Mac Miller watching movies with the Sound Off album cover.
Yeah,
and shit.
like,
Oh yeah. I'm in a hotel room right now, so I have the mobile set up. So.
Okay.
What hotel, bro? I mean, I guess we don't want to set you
Damn,
up.
John, calm down,
I'm just
bro.
wondering. The red background, brother. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that should look fancy schmancy.
It looks
So
fancy.
how's the new year going for you? You know that the Pistons ended 2023 with a win. They left no delusions of how 2024 was going to go and haven't won since. So where are you at, like, you know, with the Pistons, with your hopes for them for the new year and the season and all that?
So I'm gonna start off with a story, Tyler. You hit me up you DM me on December 4th, being like, "Hey, when the Pistons break this losing streak, you're gonna be on our podcast."
Yes.
And what I said was, "I will see you in February." but like, all jokes aside, it did take a month for us to get here.
Yeah.
It took an extra month. Like,
yeah.
But I feel like the win was like, it was cool. It was a cool spectacle, but it was just like it was cool because it was a national spectacle. It became a national, because going into the year, the Detroit Pistons, we had 4 national TV games. 3 of them are like on NBA TV. So I don't really count those as like true national TV games.
Yeah.
And I was expecting us to be like, okay, we're going to be bad, but like no one's going to be paying attention to us. Like no one's going to really be given have eyes on us or whatever. And then as we get to like loss streak 20, I see like Bleacher Report post about it. I'm seeing ESPN post about it. I'm like, oh no, this is about to be history. We about to be a Jeopardy question in 2.5 weeks. if this don't keep going, right? So, and then I watched the Celtics game on a plane, right? So I'm out here refreshing like NBA League Pass on Delta Wi-Fi, right? And we had a 19-point halftime lead that went away. That was the quickest lead I've ever seen go away like that. So getting that win, it was cool seeing everybody cheer for us. But now it's like, hey, we're still bad. The problems are still here, and they're not going to go away anytime soon. So it was cool for that day. It was cool getting that wing stop. But the next day, after the wings were all digested, we had another game. And then we lost by like 20 plus to the Rockets. So I was like, oh, we're back. Okay, cool.
Are you in Detroit? You got the wings?
No, I'm not in Detroit. I live in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
So I ordered Wingstop.
You got metaphor.
I ordered Wingstop full price in solidarity. So,
so I want to know about the streak. How many games did you like? Were you really a every game, every minute Pistons fan? Like you really suffered through the whole thing? Like you're tapping into the Celtics game on plane Wi-Fi. Like how much of it did you really take directly to the face?
This is the worst way I've ever used League Pass. I'll just say that. Like it was like, you know, certain, like you're a fan of a team, but it's an 82 game season. You're not trying to watch all 82 of like one team at sometimes. If you're trying to like really stay in tune, like national, like you got like bounce around a couple of times, you know. But the Pistons, after like starting 2-1, I was like, okay, I watched all 3 of those games. This is cool. Then the losing streak happened, like the losing streak was starting, and I was like, okay, I am very intrigued. But I like watched all of those games because now that I'm on the West Coast, it's easier for me to like keep in touch with like those games at a nice time. And then I think the real breaking point was the Wizards game, right? Because we had the losing streak, but we looked at our schedule and the game was marked on the calendar. At least we got the Wizards, bro. If we lose to the Wizards, we know that we're in some deep shit, right? Mm-hmm. And then Wizards fans likewise were like, yeah, we have this Pistons game circled too, because we know we're bad, but we're trying to figure out how bad. Then the Wizards beat us by 19 and emptied their bench. Like they pulled out the starters, and I was like, oh yeah, we're in rock bottom. So I've been watching every game up until then, and yeah, it's I don't even have the words, bro.
What are the expectations you came into this season with, right? Like, because Cade has taken a leap. Cade has, we lost him early last season. So we really couldn't see, if he was going to sophomore slump or make that sophomore leap. But he's for sure taking a leap this year. That dude is a hooper. So what were like your expectations coming into this season?
I didn't really come into this season with win-loss expectations. I was like, hey, everybody's back, but this is like the youngest team in the league. If by the end of the year you can see development between everyone here, whether it's Isaiah Stewart or Sarah Thompson, if you can see like real development, real progress being made, I'm totally fine with this. And I think Tom Gore spoke to the press and like talked, and he's like, yeah, we believe that this was a play-in team. And I was like, oh boy, we are way off. But seeing this team win 17 games last year, and Cade Cunningham only played like 12 of them, and getting Cade Cunningham back, I can understand why they would think that could turn into like, oh, I can see 30. I can see that. Like, but for me, I was like, let's hold on a second here. Like, let Cade get his like legs back, let them all play together. But seeing Cade be this good at the end of the losing streak was really optimistic to see, because I was really scared that we were going to be losing all these games and still like everyone is still developing bad habits because we're playing so bad. That was the real fear.
Why are you still a Pistons fan? Like, what?
How did you even become one? Like, we need the whole story.
As someone from Raleigh, North Carolina, I that's a great question.
That's odd. Yeah.
So my mom is a public speaker. She was a public speaker, and whenever she would travel, she would always get sports memorabilia from whatever city, wherever she went, because I became a sports fan, but my parents weren't. So my parents were like, there wasn't like the only team that I like latched onto is my dad went to Duke, so we watched Duke basketball. That was the only team. Everything else, clean slate. So my mom brought back Detroit Pistons memorabilia, and then she went to Cincinnati, brought back Bengals memorabilia, and then I'm a Mets fan for other reasons, and then I'm a Carolina Hurricanes fan. So like my fandoms are all over the place.
That is all over the place, and there's not a lot of soft landing spots in there either.
No, there isn't. There isn't like that's okay. You're gonna have a fun sports decade.
But why are you still you could like in the age of rooting for players, you could easily just not sign up for this. And for a team to get to the point where they're not just bad, like you said, they were like nationally intriguing bad. Like everybody was so interested because they were so bad. This is the perfect time to say, hey, bro, I've gone far enough. And you're still locked in. And I think there's something, I respect that. But I just wonder, what is it, that keeps you like locked into this team?
I think that it would have been different if Detroit was, as a franchise, historically bad forever. Yeah. I think that as a Pistons fan, I was able to watch them win the NBA Finals. And being a part of a team, even though I was like really young for that, being a part, like it was so cool being a part of that. And a lot of people like on Twitter, they'll be like, yeah, that was the coolest championship. That was those bad boy like that was something that like has still like stayed with me forever, because I find it more rewarding. I don't know. When I was a Duke basketball fan, I went to Maryland, and Maryland was like, we don't do that here. And I like dropped the fandom, right?
Yeah.
But as a Duke fan,
What year did you go to
when I was
Maryland?
growing
Just
up.
wondering. What year was it?
2013, 2017.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
he was
when
about
I
a
wa-
decade past there.
Oh yeah. I was like Juan Dixon, but
There
I
was a
forgot.
point where Maryland did in fact do the basketball shit. You know,
I forgot how
Shit.
young he was. I forgot how young he was. Yeah.
And
Juan Dixon, Wilcox. All them. Go ahead.
I remember when, like, I watched a couple of Duke national championships when I was growing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like there's some part of me that was just like, yeah, it's way more rewarding to be a fan of a bad team for so long, and it pays off when they're actually good again. So for me, when the Cincinnati Bengals made it to the Super Bowl, I was like, oh yeah, this has been a decade in the making. This is cool. Like, this is one of the coolest things. So I don't know. That's just how especially working in sports, I feel like it allows me also to like disassociate more, where it's like when growing, like in college, it was like no cheering in the press box and all of that. You're supposed to. I'm like, that's fine. The Bengals aren't doing anything for a while, you know.
Right.
That was easier then, but now that kind of has blurred over time. Like I'm still like, those are still my teams. So
yeah.
One thing I realized is that in those groups that you'll be talking with other Pistons fans, is that they're real hoops fans. Like going to Clippers games is really fun because they're. I mean, I hate to say it, but LA fans are Los Angeles Lakers fans, not basketball fans. A lot of them when I'm going to those games. Like the Clippers fans, I feel like I'm actually talking about basketball with Clippers fans when I'm talking about basketball with Clippers fans. You know what I'm saying? Not just the Clippers themselves.
Do you think that there's more like a spectacle to just like the Lakers game? Like you're going to a Lakers game, but that's like something that you have to do whether you like, if you like live in the city, like you got to go to a Lakers game. Like a Clippers game is like, I want to be here, watch the team. I've loved the team for a decade plus, you know, all of that.
But even not just that, I think it's just a price thing. Like anytime it's cheaper to get into something, there's going to be more real people at that thing, right? Like
that
growing
makes sense,
up, I was a Lakers fan, but we only went to Clippers games. I've talked about it on the pod because literally at Ralph's, if your mom bought 2 gallons of milk, you got a free ticket to the Clippers game. So we would just go see. Oh, okay, I could go see Charles Barkley. You know what I mean? So it was like you said, the people who was like, oh, who's in town this week? I really want to go see him.
Right,
You're not going to go to the Lakers game unless you have $700 lying around. But you can go to the Clippers game even now. Even when the Clippers are good, that's still true if you go look at the ticket prices.
Yep.
Yeah, that's real.
All right, I have a question. We talked to Jason Timpf about this, and his feeling was that so much of what happened with the Pistons was he disagreed with the Twitter narrative that the Pistons were like a roster full of spare parts that someone like shook out and then dumped on an NBA court. And he feels like Monty Williams deserves a lot of the blame for misusing guys, for sort of mystifying lineups. I saw you were retweeting some of the stuff about why is Jaden Ivey playing 4 minutes a game and you're playing some of the worst people in basketball 30 plus minutes a game. So how much of it do you think is on Monty, or I guess like how much of it with a different approach could have been avoided, or do you think it's just kind of the roster construction?
At the end of last season, Troy Weaver wrote a letter to the fan base saying that we will be better. I understand these are tough times. This is year 3 into the rebuild. And you know what he did in the free agent offseason? He signed Joe Harris and Monty Morris. I'm just going to let that simmer for y'all. For those of you playing at home, Joe Harris is not in the rotation, and Monty Morris has not touched the floor this year. All right? So Troy Weaver was like promising that it's going to be all right, whatever. I promise we're going to, okay. During the whole losing streak, I haven't heard a word from Troy Weaver. And Tom Gore's talking to the media was a big deal. But even then, his words were like, say what you say, like, we're doing everything outside of winning. We're giving back to the community. And I'm like, Tom, this ain't the time, buddy.
Fuck the community. We want some W's. Fuck
he went
them kids.
He went to motherfucking the Russell Westbrook with his pictures of his family. This is the guy you hate route, right?
I didn't notice that until like people started pointing that out. I had no idea. People were like, yeah, look at this dude, look at this nice. How can he say something bad about this athlete with his family? I'm like,
right.
Oh. But to the Monty point, I think that Monty has been dealt a bad hand with this roster construction. However, when you're dealt a bad hand, sometimes you can also just not play that hand as best as you can. And whenever they're guess how many different starting lineups the Pistons have had. Just guess.
It's been what, 35 games? Just about
35 games. Guess how many?
16.
18.
Sheesh.
Yeah, that's a good guess. The Pistons have started 18 different starting lineups in like 35 games. And some of it is due to the fact that the Pistons have had a lot of injuries this year, whether it's Bogey, Duren, Stewart, Hayes. I get that. But then there are some starting lineups that you see that you're like, what is happening? Like when Isaiah Livers started against the Jazz, all of the replies underwards were like, what are we doing? There's no reason for this, But that's the thing. It's like sometimes you see a coaching decision and it's like, I think that Monty is trying his best. However, I think that he's also tinkering too much because a lot of players, like some players will play like 30 minutes one night and then like 11 the next. And some of these changes don't feel performance based, especially when it comes to like Asar and Livers and Ivy. Like they don't feel performance based at sometimes. So it just makes it Wiseman and Bagley, like which one of those two gets to play, it just feels like he flips a coin some days.
How do you feel about Monty for the job? Like I think Monty's a good coach, but it's hard being a coach. Some people are good at coaching good teams.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
Exactly.
And some people
I think
are. I mean, he seems like he's trying, but it's like you have to accept maybe that this is not going to be a good squad and get the best you can out of the best players you have. And I don't think he's accepted that. But do you think Monty's the guy for the job, or there might be somebody else out there?
This roster is built so poorly, in my opinion, that it's hard for me to be like, yeah, Mike D'Antoni will fix this. Like it's hard for me to like point to a dude and be like, they're gonna do like. I feel like anyone that was like handed this collection of players would struggle. So there's parts of me that understand why Monty Williams has been experimenting for half a season, but there's also some things where I feel like the Pistons will do something good one game, and then Monty Williams will not revisit it. And there's where we're like, oh, the game that we won to break the streak, Kevin Knox started at the 4. And then I think a game or two after that, he's out of the starting lineup. And this is like all with Isaiah Stewart being hurt and all of that. So it's just really puzzling sometimes. And it's also puzzling when you add on like the press conference quotes at the end where he's like, oh, yeah, I didn't really like, he'll add it and we'll be like, okay, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what this man is cooking. So
I don't think he knows what's going on.
He literally said after the last game, I didn't even think about it. Didn't he say that? Like he was like, I didn't even think about it. I just did this. Like,
yeah, he's just trying to like switch stuff up. And I know the season is lost already. Like we don't have to say anything about that. But like, I don't know, man. It's just seeing like all this like everything's in flux, and we're still like bad. So it doesn't feel like. It just feels like we're just treading water.
Yeah. I'm going on John's point about how Monty just might be a good coach when he's got a good team. Like I've always had a theory that there's basically two types of NBA coaches, right? You're either a maximizer of talent or you're a developer of talent, right? It's why you often see when you have a team on the come up, on the brink of winning a championship, the guy who built that team usually gets the boot because he's hit his ceiling, right? Like we saw that in Golden State, right? We saw that in Golden State with Mark Jackson, Steve Kerr. We saw that in Chicago with Doug Collins and Phil Jackson. You know, we saw that again in with the Lakers when Phil Jackson got that job again, right? And building on the Steve Kerr shit, we see how he's struggling with developing the younger talent that they have there now, right? Guys are usually like developers or maximizers, in my opinion, which is why I think Pop is like the best coach of all time, because I think we've seen him develop and maximize talent. But yeah, I think that even if they don't think Monty is the guy for the job, he's the highest paid coach in the league. Like you know what I'm saying? Like, are you really gonna, cut weight with him and just have that contract eating up your cap for years to come? Because I'm a firm believer that fired coach is the best job in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like fired coach with years left on your contract, that is the best fucking job you could have.
Sign me the fuck up, man.
Right.
Hell yeah.
Easily. But yeah, like I said, I don't know how much we can blame Monty here because, he doesn't have a lot to work with, but we can for sure criticize how he's, working with the shit that he has. You feel me?
Yeah, exactly. I think it flips like every 5 minutes, honestly, where you like look at the bench operate and be like, oh, this is the worst bench in the league. But then you also look at the coin and you're like, Alex Burks played 32 minutes this game, and it's like you'll look at it and it'll be like some part frustrating, but some part like I understand that he's trying everything, and like I get it.
So I respect the loyalty of you saying like you're just in it, like and you're obviously, like you said, the season's lost, et cetera, et cetera. But my question is, given that you're still clearly tapped in, like what's the win? Like what are you hoping for this season? Is it just draft picks? Is it like, are you still thinking like, no, okay, I want to see development from these core guys or whatever? Like what sort of like, what is there left to root for, I guess, where you're already, is it just not going on a 30-game losing streak now? Like what's the upside that you are hoping for the rest of the season?
I think the upside for me is like being able to watch Cade, watch Jalen Duren, watch Ivy when they do have their good games. Like it's interesting to be like, hey, even through all of this, you guys can still like have your good games or still whatever. And as someone that loves Cade Cunningham, and just you see all the tweets where someone's like, yo, if Cade Cunningham just had like an inkling of more help, and it's just like that like keeps me going a little bit, because knowing how special Cade Cunningham is, and I think that that's probably one of the silver linings of this, is because now that we had all this attention to the Detroit Pistons, people were able to see truly how good Cade Cunningham is, even despite all of this. I think that's a good, like, that's a win for me, honestly. And again, the season was never, I keep saying that this season wasn't about wins and losses. I didn't expect for it to be like 3-30, right? I was expecting it to be like maybe like 15-20. But seeing the young guys, or as Cade Duren, or like whatever the core is, seeing Ivy, whether something is different about them from like the beginning of the season to the end of the season, that's fine with me, because this season we wasn't expecting like a plan. I'm like, the Pistons, as a Pistons fan, we have seen that like being mid for like way too long. Like, where it's like maybe this team could win 42 games, and you're like, why are we doing this? And then we get the 8th to 12th pick, and then we smoke the pick, and then we're back in the same place. I'd rather, like, it was cool. It was so cool seeing us get the number 1 pick for the first time since I think Bob Lanier, right? So it was cool when we got that pick and was like, hey, we're actually like doing the seller, build it back up, and just like stay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we should blow it up. Maybe one more season. I couldn't do that anymore.
You have to feel like the lottery is bullshit, though, correct? You're like, if we set the longest losing streak in NBA history, don't give us the fucking number 6 pick. Like,
I think that I think that our season last year was a great lesson of, hey, just because the mock draft has you at number 1 for the entire season doesn't mean, like, the lottery was built for this purpose, right? And does it suck that we didn't get Wemby? Yes, but like at the same time, it would be very foolish to just assume that because your team is the worst that it's going to turn around and you're going to get that one player. Because the Bobcats did it. They won 7 games and missed out on Anthony Davis. Like that's like, I think the missing out on Anthony Davis part hurts more than the 7 wins. That's, in my opinion, like, if the missing out on Wemby hurts more than the 17 wins that season, in my opinion, honestly.
absolutely.
Yeah. Going back to, like, what John said earlier when he was like, why haven't you hopped off? As someone who has rooted for shitty teams in a former life before I decided to, do some self-care and take care of my mental here, the terrible years where there is no hope at all, where you're going to stink it up, but like those were always the most fun, where you are like, okay, we're not going to do shit this year. Let's find some type of joy somewhere. Let's find some joy, some laughs, or something to look forward to. It's the years where you're winning 35 games, you're missing the playoffs, and you get the 16th pick or whatever. Those are the years that you're like, what the fuck was this even for? Like, is that how you feel, Kofie?
Stress-free. No, I think that a lot of these losses were closer than I expected, right? Like, there's a chart, I think, where the Pistons had like 12 first quarter leads or something like that. And it was really weird seeing like all of this hope throughout all these games. Like the Pistons, like a losing streak is bad when there's hope involved.
Mm.
Like when you go into the fourth quarter being like, oh, it's a 5-point game, that's worse than like the times where you faced Embiid and then lost by like 32. That's better. I could shut the laptop off. I could go play some PS5. Like I could.
Yes.
But now I have to lock in and then spend more time. All of that. That's the more like stressful part about it. And there's something beautiful about bad NBA basketball from a bad team when it's fun. When the Rockets were bad. However, you got this Jalen Green top 10 like play. Like this was like two seasons ago. Like that is something at least to take away from it. But a lot of these losses have been like, dude, this is bad. And we also lead the league in turnovers. And we also take and make the least threes. And we also foul the most. Like they're just like, there's so many other elements of basketball that like you're just like drains you. That's why I want to say.
Right. Yeah. Like, of course the Pistons are shitty, but I can imagine that, having Cade as your franchise player is fun. You know what I mean? Because we've seen like the Bobcats be terrible and Gerald Wallace was their best player. Like how the fuck are you depending on Gerald Wallace to fucking rescue you? You know what I'm saying? Like that is not some shit that I can, ever like see myself getting behind. But Cade, like this season is a wash. We all know that, but the future is bright for that kid.
Yeah, I think that the Pistons know what players that we're like Pistons fans like are like kind of on board about the players that we should like keep, which is fine. It's good to have that instead of like us arguing over that. I'm glad that we're usually on the same page for that.
And something that has impressed me is this team still has fight in them. Like I saw the Nets game where they lost that heartbreaker on that forced turnover by Bridges. Fucking Cade left it all out there, had like 42, 9, and 5 or some shit.
The Celtics game.
Then they came back the next game, the Celtics game, hopped out to a 20-point lead, right? Like still had fight in them, blew that. And you know what I'm saying? And then we had the fucking, the game last night versus Utah where Burke hit one of the shots of the season to send that shit into overtime, right? So it's like, what are you taking away from that even though they're terrible, like, there's still some fight there, which is something that, you can at least commend them on.
I think that they've always had that fight, but for the first half of the losing streak, I think there was something about their body language where I saw someone tweet it out, but it was like during that stretch, all you needed to do to beat the Pistons was like play 3 minutes of serious basketball, because in terms of like them going on a run, like if a team like hunkered down and really was just like going on a run, the Pistons would get in their own head and then like play themselves out of the game. That's how it was for a little bit. But then there's just like a corner turn. I can't really like bookmark when, can't really like point it out. I think the corner turn when Cade was like, we're not a 2 in 2016. When Cade said that, I think when Cade was like, we're not a 2 in 2016, we're not this bad. And people were like, yeah, your record says that. But I also understood Cade being like, we're better than this and we're going to try our best to prove it. And I think that kind of that fight, also them staying with the Celtics for that long, even though we didn't win that game, and Cade afterward was like, hey, we could like when we play our best, we could like this could be the result. Like we're not like just a roll over and get killed team. But like the first half of the losing streak, it was bad.
We spoke to that, how we thought it looked like they didn't care. It looked like they had given up, until Cade said that. But I think around that time, it seemed like they started to turn it around, and we saw them fighting in the games that Tyler mentioned. But at the point where it seemed like that body language was messed up and you may have cared more than they even cared, it seemed. How did that feel as a fan, watching that? And as a longtime fan, you feel me?
There's as a fan, I realized that I'm entitled to nothing, right? There's nothing like I can be as mad.
It's such a healthy relationship.
I know.
This is why you were able to stay with them for 20 years. You know what I mean? Like,
be as mad
I get
as
it.
Team as I want, but at the end of the day, it's not about me. But I had to think about it. I had to take a step back and was like, I probably looked at the roster and was like, this is probably the most games that they've lost in a row ever, like in their career, right? Like imagine you Cade played at Montverde. I think they went undefeated then.
Yeah.
There's no NBA players on AAU teams that lose 15 games in a row. Yes,
right.
That's
so
a great point.
So on top of it being frustrating, I feel like for a lot of these players, it's probably also new territory. So a lot of them, I could understand. Again, I'm not gonna like generalize or be like they're probably, but I could understand if you are 15 or if you got to Halloween without a win and got to Thanksgiving without a win, right? I could understand being frustrated, but also feeling the sense of like, hey man, night in and night out, we're trying our best, and it's still not enough. I can understand how that gets to like a team.
You're navigating new spaces mentally and emotionally, probably that you've never experienced as one of the best in the world at what you do. That makes sense.
Right. 2 months of playing basketball without a win. I could not imagine.
I can imagine any
feel like as a professional basketball player, right? I could not.
I can't imagine doing anything 27 times in a row and not getting the desired result I wanted. You know?
I would have quit at probably double digits. Like get to 12 and you get, it's like, all right, man. Like, I mean, they're getting paid to keep playing, but
if I went over 27 in baseball, I'm quitting the league. You know, like as a kid,
that's a week.
As a kid, I remember I got to 7th grade and I went over 27. I was like, that's a lot of my parents driving me back and forth for no results. I was like, let me just cut my losses there.
You went over 27?
Yeah, I was like, let's try something else. Because this is when the pitchers. Like you remember the batting cages,
what grade
right?
was this? What grade was this? You said 7th grade?
6th, 7th grade. Yeah. You remember the batting cages?
Oh, so this is like you said, you were born in 95. So this is like the Barry Bonds peak right around that time.
Yeah. Baseball was my first like that's my first like if I could have played like professional sport, I would have been like baseball for sure.
Also, 7th grade is when kids start to get good. You start standing out. You start seeing like if you have it or if you don't. You know what I mean?
There was a batting cage in North Carolina. It's called Grand Slam USA, and they had, I'll never forget this. There's 3 batting cages. One was 35 miles per hour, right? That's light work. That's easy, right? 2, 55 miles per hour.
Yeah,
it's a little bit tougher, but like it's not. It's like the average. Like okay, you're fine. Like you just gotta buckle down. The 3rd cage, 75 miles per hour. I get into that 3rd cage as like a 6th grader. And I'm just like, and I know it's a machine, so it's not going to hit me in the head.
It's dodgeball.
But at the same time, I'm like, oh,
this shit fast as fuck.
This is scary. This is scary. Yeah.
You know what? The guy I coach my kids' baseball team with, he had almost the same story where he was like, he's from the Bay Area. It was the Barry Bonds era. He was like an all city, all district level. Like he was a really good youth player. And then they did an all-star tournament. And they faced their first pitcher who really had command and velocity. Mm-hmm. And he said he was like, I've struck out twice the whole year, and he struck me out 3 times in that game. And by the time I got back to my parents' car, I was like, I don't got it. Like I don't like. I'm looking at what this dude's doing, and I'm like, I can't even conceive of hitting the baseball right now.
Also, one thing about that too is like the pitchers get taller. Yep. You know what I'm saying? So you got a pitcher that's like 6 foot. Throwing down from that mound. I'm left-handed. He's left-handed. He's throwing that ball from behind my back, nigga, to let that motherfucker go. That feel a little different when it's coming at 75 miles an hour than it was, you know what I'm saying? When a dude that may be shorter than me is throwing that shit at 45, 50, 60, you know what I'm saying? Because you fuck around and get hit by that nigga, that shit in the back, it's, you know what I mean? You're going to feel that 3 days from now. So it's a little different.
I love Kofie's idea that the Pistons should try something different. It was like they get to 26 losses. Like maybe it's baseball, you know, maybe it's soccer. I don't know.
Kane might be cold in the outfield. He might be a great center fielder. You know what I mean?
Personally, I'd be in that locker room staring.
It's time for jazz, fellas. Detroit racquetball.
Right? But that I think that just goes to show how like strong-willed these players are to be able to, because I know that Monty was talking about how like spirits were still high, like on a day in, day out basis. They are better than me, man.
That's a lie, though.
Yeah, Monty, ain't no coach ever going to admit that they lost the locker. Like we saw that shit happen with Darvin Ham with those comments.
I like to think that though. I like to imagine that they.
All right, my last question, Tyler. There's actually a question for Tyler. Tyler, do you want to give a sales pitch to Kofie on how much happier life is when you leave a terrible team behind, or do you respect his decision to remain loyal to his childhood team?
Listen, I follow Kofie. Kofie's one of my favorite fucking followers for years. Been one of my favorite followers for years. And bro, like he's having fun with this shit, and that's exactly what you should do. Like there is no light at the end of this tunnel, so fuck it. You know what I'm saying? Like dance in the darkness. You feel me? Like, and that's exactly what my man is doing, man. So I'm not even gonna impart any, just hang it up. Life's better, stress free, because Kofie seems to have a good grip on this shit.
And people kept texting me and like DMing me, "Hey, you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah."
God damn.
This is what
People are legitimately concerned for you, bro.
I'm like, "Yeah, this is fine." Like
people are doing wellness
bro.
checks.
This is chill. We having fun. Like I'm like, I love my job and I love what I'm able to do. Like this ain't like I'm cool.
People hit you with just if you ever need to talk, I'm here for you.
I got hit with that, yeah.
God damn.
I'm like, yo, I'm good, bro. At the end of the day, this is easily this is history. Like
this is a season you're never gonna forget, right?
I will, and I'm being able to,
like you might forget that 2015 season. Like what the fuck was y'all record then? But you're never gonna forget this shit.
I'm never gonna forget this, and I'm never gonna forget playing Greg Monroe, Josh Smith, and Andre Drummond all at the same time. I'll never forget that. We got that that's forever.
I need to hear more about that. How did that go, bro? I love like on the same shit John was talking about when you realize there is a difference between regular dudes and guys who are those guys. Like how did that one go?
So that original, so the tweets where I have that banner where it's the Pistons banner, but then I changed the words on it.
Yeah.
So that was a bit the entire losing streak where it's like, yo, we lost by single digits, and I put that on the banner and I'm like, hang it up, like we good. Like I kept doing that for every loss. Do you know what the original words on that meme are?
What?
Waved Josh Smith. That is the original meme from, it's the banner and there's like everybody looking at the rafters being like, hey, we waved Josh Smith. That's how that went.
God damn.
And then not only that, I think we waved Josh Smith and then like won 8 games in a row. That was one of the wildest things I've ever seen. I was like, yo.
That's truly hilarious. All right. Well, like I said, you can find him on Secret Base. You can find him at Kofie Y on TikTok and Twitch. Kofie, thank you so much for taking the time. Best of luck with the rest of the Pistons season. We appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This is a lot of fun.
For sure. Appreciate you, my boy.
Appreciate you, my boy.